by Edward Payson. And there's some things in here that he says that I think will be very beneficial to you. That the infinite and every blessed Jehovah, before whom all nations are as nothing and vanity, should rejoice in the repentance of a sinful worm of the dust, appears at first view strange and almost incredible. Now do you realize, let's just stop. Do you realize how shocked most people would be in most evangelical churches if I just read that? They would literally be livid. I mean, they would be beside themselves. They would be so angry. How dare anyone use that language regarding me? That's a reflection, my dear friend, on their pastor. That is a reflection on their pastor. But however strange or incredible it may appear, it is evident both from his declarations and his conduct that such is the fact. Now, for most people today, it does not seem strange nor incredible that Jesus should die for them. I remember hearing a professor say that if God had not become incarnate to save humanity, he would be an atheist. As though God owes us salvation. God owes us nothing but justice. And justice would claim our lives in eternal condemnation. So it should always seem incredible to you that Christ has died. It should seem an almost strange or incredible fact. If it's not, you've lost sight of who God is, who you are, and what the cross is all about. A man who thinks that that his wife is the great beneficiary of the marriage, that she was just some lowly girl, and he came around and saved her, and she ought to thank her lucky stars that he did, he is going to despise her. But a man who thinks, man, did I marry over the top of my head, is going to treat his wife in a different way. What was she thinking when she said yes to me? I'm the most fortunate man on the face of the earth. I just hope my wife never wises up to exactly what she got. Now, if you don't think that way, it'll be reflected. It'll be reflected. Oh, how high we are. How high we think we are. How much we claim to deserve. It's amazing when something bad happens, or when difficulties and things like that. I don't deserve this. I just don't deserve this. When something good happens, rarely do you hear someone say, I don't deserve this. Well, when the worst thing that could happen to you on the face of the earth happens to you and you say, I don't deserve this, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say, you're right. You deserve worse. You know, so love songs are written because the person singing them is absolutely amazed that this other person actually loves them. If you lose that, my friend, you've lost everything. You've lost everything. I think the one thing that I guess because of the generation my father came from, you know, most of the guys my age, our dads, most of them grew up happy if they ate. I mean, really. They were happy if they ate. And the one thing that my father would not tolerate, I mean in our house, it was not tolerated, and that was for any of us not to appreciate what we had. I mean, it was like you got a pair of $6 Chuck Taylor Converse All-Stars. You appreciated them. Because your father made you appreciate them. Because there was a time when he was up, when just, you know, little boy, 8 years old, selling newspapers on the street corner in Detroit just to try to get money to eat. So if you got some Chuck Taylor tennis shoes, the big star on the side, you better appreciate them. When you lose that, you've just lost. You've just lost. I was some men working at my house from Latin America, Guatemalans and a few Mexicans. And I was amazed this last week. Those men worked like no one I've seen work since my childhood. They were appreciative to have a job. And they got there at 6 in the morning, and the only reason they stopped pouring cement at night was because the American cement company didn't want to work anymore. And they stayed out there until in the moonlight working, and we're back out there at 6 in the morning, and we're loving it. We're thanking me for the opportunity to work. But one of them was telling me, he goes, you know, he goes, it's different now. I said, what do you mean, brother? He happened to be a Christian, Baptist. I said, what do you mean, brother? And he said, when I was 11, I got my first pair of pants. What he meant was long pants in Mexico. He said, I worked for I don't know how many months, and I bought my pair of pants. He was like 11 years old. And he said, I kept those pants almost in perfect condition for over a year. He said, it took everything I could muster to buy those pants. And I was so proud of those pants. And he goes, my son comes to me and wants a $90 pair of tennis shoes. He goes, I just don't understand it. And I said, get used to it. He said, why? I said, because the second generation is always that way. If not the second, the third. You thought you were in heaven because you got a pair of pants. A pair of tennis shoes is not good enough for the next generation. It's got to be the kind Michael Jordan wears, who you know, made $36 million a year. And you say, why are you talking about this? Because this principle is spiritual also. Why am I always emphasizing the need to study the attributes of God? Why am I always emphasizing the need to study the depravity of a man's heart? You think I like looking into that dark recess? It's necessary. Why? So that ultimately we might have joy. An appreciative person is a joyful person. Someone who does not appreciate anything never has joy. To be able to appreciate the cross of Christ, you got to see who He is and who you were and what He's done. And you got to see it as a strange fact. You've got to... I tell young men who are preaching, okay? I say, look, you all know the story about the young preacher went off to seminary and came back, wanted to preach in his church, and the pastor led him, and he goes up to the pulpit, just his chest stuck out, and you know, his head held high, and gets up there and preaches, and he does the most horrible job you could ever imagine, and he comes down with his chest all sunken in and his head bowed low. And the preacher said, son, if you'd have gone up the way you came down, you'd have came down the way you went up. And what I want you to see as a preacher, the correct attitude when you get up in the pulpit and God uses you. I mean, there's no doubt. He used you. You need to come off of that pulpit and go in a room somewhere and almost get in a corner and say, Lord, depart from me. I'm a sinful man. Almost as if, Lord, it was wrong for you to use me that way. You see what I'm saying? This is almost, I don't even want it. It shouldn't be mine. it breaks me in a million pieces to know that your grace would be so great that you would let me